Yes, Harsha.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yes, welcome back. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Harsha, for accepting the invitation because we planned very lately only. Okay, because IIC gave deadline, we need to complete the event by this week.
Sure.
So actually, I need to thank Microsoft team because
Hmm.
irrespective of this is IIC event, they worked together. Okay, they sent the final brochure around 1 a.m. midnight 1 a.m. yesterday. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you Kamal and team, and thank you Harsha actually for accepting the invitation. I
Thank you,
think
sir.
Pioneer, shall we start, sir?
Yes, sir, please, sir.
Yes. Okay, so on behalf of IIC and Sathyabama Institute of Science and Technology, I welcome all the students here and also Pioneer sir. And I think Kishore sir also will join soon. Will remind Kishore sir about this event also. And special thanks to Kishore sir and team IIC whole IIC Sundari ma'am everyone. Because of them only we are conducting. A lot of events last 6 months and the next cycle events also we started I think from yesterday we started and tomorrow conduct the event on he is going to complete within 6 months. Okay, so he already participated in one event recently on same topic, if I'm not wrong, Harsha. So same topic again, but a different set of students we are have, and I think he's best one. If they telling the title startup, the one thing come to my mind is Harsha, because he's the one who is always gave good topics, good suggestion, and interactive to students also. So I hope so. The students, it will be a very useful session. Whatever doubts you are having, you just ask them. He will start the meeting within few minutes. Okay, I think Kishore sir also joined them.
Sir
Yes,
Vignesh, sir. Few
sir,
words, sir. Few
sir,
words. Sir Vignesh, sir.
yes, sir.
Shall I speak few words, sir?
Yes, sir. Sure.
Yes, sir. I extend my
Before,
sincere welcome and I thank to Mr. Vignesh, sir, for arranging this event and with the permission of the management. And these are all the very good opportunity that the students can utilize it. See, since the Institution Innovation Council is an approved body from Ministry of HRD. See, there are so much of innovations have been approved with the help of TBA. Satyabama, we are having a TBA also, Technology Business Incubator. And with that, we are encouraging the people to come out with the startup, and the startup has been converted into product which is commercialized. So there is a lot of opportunity that the students can able to bring their ideas, and ideas can be converted into startup. So in this auspicious day, and welcome Mr. Arsh sir to give some input about the startup to the students, and it will be very much helpful to you. And I request all the participants to encourage, utilize this opportunity and bring out some ideas. There are so many mentors are available in our IIC, right? Innovation ambassador, innovation startup, and entrepreneurship. Everything we are motivating the people, and there are mentorship also done by so many faculties. So I say that it is very much useful to you. Thank you, Mr. Vignesh sir, for arranging the event, and thank you, the guest, for given this opportunity for us to learning something for the students also. Thank you very much, sir.
thank you, sir. I think Kishore sir is also here. Kishore sir,
Yes, sir.
yes. Kishore sir, shall we start, sir?
Yes, sir. I just sorry. Okay then. Fine. I just reached. So hello everyone, and my wishes to Dr. Palani sir, Mr. Vignesh sir, right, and Mr. Kamal, Harshvardhan. How are you?
Sir, I'm doing great. Thanks a lot, sir.
Very fine. Happy to see. I think we have around 92 participants,
Yes, sir.
and it's good that see. Personally, I just want to tell one word to all the participants.
Hmm.
Don't leave these two guys, Kamal and Harsh. Right? They are too smart enough to guide you, right? And it's a good opportunity. First years, take the contact from them. maybe just hang on to them because they are very, very competitive. Right? This is what I just want to tell. Rest is all yours, Harsh.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
So, Mr. Kamal, sir, I extend warm welcome to you also, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay,
Thank you.
Harsha will start, Harsha.
Sure.
Yes, thank you, thank you.
Sir, basically this session will be coordinated by both me and Kamal. So
Okay,
we
okay.
are going to like discuss a
Superb.
few things and
Superb,
talk about a
superb.
few things.
Superb. Okay, okay.
Sure. So, yeah. So first of all, starting up, welcome everyone to this session on getting to know startups. And in this session, we are just going to discuss what startups are, how you can create your own startup, and what is the specific impact that you should be looking for if you are creating your own startup. Almost everyone, I guess, in this session has known about startups like Zomato or Swiggy or Zerodha or Cred. And now it might be possible that most of you are thinking about creating your own startup, about bringing your idea into execution. And this session is completely geared towards helping you out about ideating your plans, executing it up, and how you can start building your idea. So before going to start, Kamal, would you like to say a few things?
No, I guess you can go ahead. I don't have any more.
Sure. Sure. So I did not manage to add my introduction slide. So I guess, Kamal, you can first introduce yourself.
Okay, it's fine. Okay, my name is Kamal Sharma, and I'm a final year at Sathyabama College, like our college only. And I've been placed at Mr. Cooper, and I'm like in the role of software engineer trainee, which I'll be starting from January as internship, which will extend to full-time application. I learned a lot during the past 2 years with Harsh. He guided me through the process. So yeah, make sure like you take advices from Harsh and work on it. It'll help you a lot.
Sure. And from my side, I'm incoming software engineer at HackerRank. I'm not sure how many of you have heard about HackerRank, but if you have heard about it, then you might know that it is one of the first Indian startups that got accepted into Y Combinator. Y Combinator is a startup school that is based in US, and it provides almost 1,025, like 1,25,000 US dollars in early stage startups. So HackerRank was one of the first startups to have got into Y Combinator, which is quite a big thing. And I will be like working over there the next year. So right now I'm pretty much working at Quantsite, which is another US-based startup, as a software engineer. And previously I have worked at a couple of startups like Economize, Atom, QXF2, and Nethermind. So I have been like working with Kamal, I guess, for the past 2 years. We basically met during a machine learning project session, and then we started like working with the Chennai Bus Transport Corporation, and then slowly our partnership started into, and we decided to like collaborate in multiple community events. So if you are into PHP, Linux, web development, make sure that you hit him up. Cool. So yeah, getting started up with the whole thing. So let's talk a bit about some of the great startups and their execution. Now, suppose that you have a great idea, you have a great product, you have a great team, and you have a great execution. Now, all of these things might overlap somewhat, but we can like talk about them somewhat individually so that it makes some sense. But there are chances that you will still fail. The outcome is like that even though you will combine your idea, your product, your execution, your team, your luck, there might be some random number that will basically lead your idea to be failed. And one of the most exciting things about startups is that everyone is on an even playing field. There are people who are coming into startups who are quite young and inexperienced, like us. There are people who are coming in as very old and very experienced. And yet, there are chances that no matter how good of an idea you're building, there are chances that you will still fail. And this is something that is shown by the statistics. Almost 90% of the startups fail, not just in India, but across the world. Now, this basically makes the people quite hesitant because you should not be doing startup just
Harsha,
for
a
this.
minute.
Mhm.
Kamal, if possible, record this event.
Yeah,
Yes, sir. I've already started the recording, sir.
Yes. Thank you.
cool.
Sorry. You
Sure.
Sure, sir.
Yeah. So a lot of people think that basically we can make a startup just for the sake of doing so. They start a company, they start doing something, but they don't exactly know about it. And this often leads the startup to basically fall into abyss. They're not able to do anything. They're not able to attract the customers. They're not able to do the right execution. And people who just join a startup for the sake of becoming rich or maybe becoming famous, they are simply not able to do anything. So even though there might be notions that you can build a startup, you can make the world a better place with a startup, the bad news is that most of the startups actually fail. But what is the exact reason behind it? Why do the startups exactly fail? So Kamal, do you have some ideas about this part? Like, what is your opinion about why do the startups fail?
One reason might be like they know that the idea is good, but the execution might be at fault. That is one
Yes.
of the reason. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
they didn't think about the business model aspect while bringing up the startup. They have an idea,
Exactly.
but if they don't have a business model, then it might fail.
Yeah. What about the rest of the audience? Like, can anyone just put up in the comment, like, why do they think that startups actually fail? Or maybe you can unmute yourself and you can directly speak up. Anyone? My friends wants to join. Yeah. So this is the problem because there is a maximum capacity of like only 100 folks. Rohit is saying planning. Ram is saying unplanned execution. What about the rest? Anyone else? Funding, improper planning. So I guess like if we just combine all of the aspects, copying other ideas, this is like one of the most common reasons why startups fail. But it has also led to some of the startups becoming quite popular. A very good example of this is Dream 11. Dream 11 started as a fantasy league and is right now a lot of other applications like MPL. They're simply copying the same idea, but they are still getting the unicorn status. They're still succeeding right now. Any more ideas about why do the startups fail? So as you can see, like if you try to combine most of the reasons here, there are a plethora of reasons on why startups actually fail. But ultimately, it will always come down to failure to plan. So as you can see, there are always the three elements of a business. Every business has a product, or it can maybe offer a service. Every business has a sales or the marketing team. Every business has an accounting or a legal team. Now, when you're building out a startup, you're building out a product, you don't exactly need to have the best product in the world because if no one knows about it and it is not appealing, then it won't sell. It is as easy as that. So perhaps you will have got enough money that the people decide that the product is worth the marketing, but still a lot of people will have apprehensions if they're like simply adopting your product without much idea about it. So if you're starting a startup, majority of the time, what the why the startups fail is because they tend to neglect the sales and the marketing part. Otherwise, you can have like the best sales or the marketing team, but if they don't have a good product to work with, it would be like significantly quite hard for them to basically sell the product and have long-term customers. And finally, if you don't have enough money, you don't have enough funding, the business won't survive. You can sell a million products, but if you're like losing some sort of money on each dollar that you're earning or each rupees that you're earning, you need to look out for some better secondary source of income so that you don't become a loss leader. This is one of the best examples about how the Indian startups are going ahead. A lot of the Indian startups are getting loads of funding, but they don't exactly have the right source of revenue. Let me just take an example for one of these startups. How many of you have heard about Apna? Anyone? You can just say a yes or no. Yes. So Apna is like one of the fastest unicorns in India. For people who are not familiar with Apna and not familiar with the term unicorn, basically startup which reaches the valuation of uh, $1 billion is called as a unicorn. So Apna is one of the few unicorns from India, and it is like one of the fastest unicorns to arrive in India. But if you check out the revenue model, Apna is not generating a single rupee or a single dollar right now. Its revenue model is completely nil. It is not earning a single sort of money. Everything that it is getting, it is coming out of simple funding. It is coming out of uh, the venture capitalists and all of that. So this is a perfect recipe for disaster. A lot of the startups who are not earning like quite much money and they're like simply into the loss making business, chances are very high that they will simply go down in the market once some sort of things happen. One of the best examples of this is like the dot com bubble. Dot-com bubble was something that arrived in US, and it simply arrived because people were like investing in companies that simply did not have any source of revenue. And this basically led to the whole market falling down once the stock did not satisfy their valuations. So what is the exact reason like why startups might fail? And this is where the entire concept of the J curve basically comes in. So J curve basically says that uh, there is no straight line from a startup to a sustainable success. All that you need to always keep in mind is that every time you're building a startup, every time you're building a product, you should always look forward to sustainability. Sustainability is a real key, and sustainability basically comes through regular revenue, retention of the employees, having a great team, having a great product, having a great marketing. So this is what we call like the whole sustainable business. If you take a look at all of the modern businesses right now, like just pick up a modern company like Microsoft or Google, these are the perfect example of sustainable business. They started as a startup, and right now they have like a sustainable source of income. They're generating a lot of revenue, and this revenue is contributing towards the profit of the company. So if you might have gone through the book called as the Startup J Curve, this book is like written by Howard Love. He basically states that there is no straight line, there is no roadmap, there is no straight path for success. Rather, the company basically goes through a J curve initially before it actually reaches that state of sustainability. So as you can see right here, like there is a certain way here. Initially, we have got a startup inception. This is what you basically come up with an idea. You think that, okay, this is how we are going to build this. This is how we are going to do. And once you start arriving on it, you decide that, okay, this is how we will be hiring the right team. This is how we will be marketing the product. This is how we will be developing it. And once we reach the initial public offering, this is where your company basically goes public. You start generating some revenue and you start like paying back to the investors who invested in your company initially. Now, every time it happens that the product will always take longer to develop. Like let us say that you thought of a super application, something that combines most of the stuff that you can see around you. Uh, like you can basically take the example of Gojek in Indonesia. Gojek is recognized as a super application in Indonesia. We don't have something like this in India. We have like scattered applications. We have Zomato, we have Swiggy, we have like different applications for different purposes. So if you're building something like a super application, it might be possible that your product will always take longer to develop. And even if your product is developed, the customers will not impress the initial product. They will always think that this product is not mature, or this product is not used across by a lot of people, and this product is not like time tested. So they will obviously like don't want to pick up that particular product. And the third case might be that the business model doesn't exactly work. So no matter how much money you're pouring into the business model, it is simply not generating enough revenue for you. So the author of this book basically described this as a valley of death. So every startup that is basically having an inception right now, they need to crawl out of this valley of death before they exactly run out of the cash. If they don't have a sustainable model and if they don't find ways through which they can basically get out of this dilemma, they will simply die off. And this is why we have like six phases of the startup curve. We have basically phases like create, we have phases like release, morph, model, scale, and harvest. So if you are planning to be a startup founder, if you're planning to be an entrepreneur, you need to be aware that you are on a J curve right now. So if you're like focusing on scaling right now before exactly getting even the first user, it means that your chances of success are very, very diminished. So Kamal, what do you think about this J curve?
I believe like they have tested and then only they have come up with this. So I agree with it.
Yeah. So every company that you're seeing today, like I can take example of Nika or I can take example of Paytm. At some point or the other, they basically came out of this entire valley of death. They started with some idea. They faced a lot of trouble. They faced a lot of scaling issues. They were not getting their first customers. And since they had some venture capitalist funding, they had like a lot of money. So they started pouring into making their business model much more perfect. They started making some profit, and this is why they have went ahead with the IPO, which is the initial public offering. So initial public offering basically gives loads of cash to the investors who invested in the company initially, and now like they want themselves to be set free, and now the public can basically invest in that company. Surinder, can you please mute yourself? Uh, your mic is on. Yeah, thanks a lot. So, do we have anyone else? So this is how exactly you need to recognize the impact of the J curve on your startup journey. So now that we have like reached up till this point, we exactly know how startups fail and why do you need to take regard of the J curve and how do you exactly need to think about the product. We have some 4 simple agendas for the day. The first, we are going to talk about how we can build startups. Next, we are going to talk about the IPRs. Thirdly, we are going to talk about the market research. And finally, we will be getting into the valuation and the licensing. So our first agenda would be like build startups. What does startups exactly mean? And how do you exactly like think of ideas and how exactly can you plan them ahead? So this is something that people ask quite a lot. How do we exactly think of ideas? So first off, if you really can't see how anything around you can be improved or done maybe few times better, then you are not either not an ideas person or maybe you have not got enough exposure. Like let me just give the example of my own case. I was in my first year of college and I used to think of a lot of ideas, and every time I used to like think of some ideas, they were really basic. Sometimes I used to think about making an OTP generator. Sometimes I used to think about making a bus reservation application, something like that, which were like quite repeated many times over. And this simply owed to my lack of exposure in the world. I simply did not know much about the technology part. I simply did not know much about the business aspect of things. And I was simply not the right person to like basically think of ideas. But right now, when I see some of the products that are being developed, I can analyze how they can be much improved. And I can see like how I can do them much better. This is when you start coming up with ideas. So as you can see, like everything that you see around the world can be simply improved. Like let me just take the example of Apna itself. Apna is a unicorn right now, but what exactly makes it so stand apart? What exactly is so unique in this idea? So as you can see, Apna is straight off a clone of LinkedIn. I hope most of you have heard about LinkedIn, but if you have not heard about it, then it is a professional hiring platform. People make account over LinkedIn so that they can connect to professionals, and they use LinkedIn to basically get some good job or internships or contract role, whatever you prefer. But as you can see, LinkedIn is simply for white collar jobs, engineers, analysts, designers, and more of these folks. But what about the blue collar jobs? People like who are tailors, they might be plumbers, they might be carpenters, they might be electricians. So they don't definitely have a footing inside LinkedIn because they're like simply doing the work on a freelance basis, on a contract basis. So this is where Apna basically came ahead. So as you can see, the founder basically found a default, like found a fault inside the original idea, and they thought that maybe they can improve this part. And this is how most of the startups actually come by. They usually see something that is going in a not so proper manner. They decided that they want to make it much more efficient. And through this efficiency, they want to get some sort of a profitable business out of it. And this is how they basically come out of their own ideas. So there is a hell lot of like ways in which you can start a business, and that's about execution and a lot of different skill set, because you might need marketing, you might need sales, you might need business development, you might need a strategy, you might need some sort of development aspects as well. So ideas for a startup are simply like the magic wands in Harry Potter. You basically don't choose the wand, it is the wand that chooses you. So you need to derive your startup idea through a discomfort or a gap that you see in the existing market. So maybe someday you go to Instagram to scroll to scroll your feed, and you thought that maybe people are like getting caught by some unnecessary posts, or they are not exactly engaging with the right content. This is what might have came into the mind of the TikTok's founder. They thought that the feed is not very alluring for the people, and this is why they came up with a video based social media. So just pick up a product that you really like today and try to think of the ways in which you can further improve this product. And since you really cannot join that company to improve this, you can start building your startup or maybe your product on top of it. And this is how you can basically research for your idea. So as a startup founder, all that you need to focus is how you can solve a problem. Like just think about the problems that exist today, or maybe the problems that will exist tomorrow. Like almost 10 years back, there was a problem that did not really exist at that time, but it exists right now. And that was about grocery delivery. A lot of applications started to basically deliver your grocery at your home itself, but some of these applications simply did not take off. And right now, there are companies which is simply stating that we can deliver your grocery within 10 minutes. And these companies are getting like loads of venture capitalist funding. So the good thing here is that the problems never end. And even if the present solution of the problem might get outdated after some time, after a few years, you will see that the business model of popular companies are simply getting outdated and it is no longer sustainable. So this is where you can basically come up with your idea and you can see that this is how we are going to improve it. And this is how you can present a showcase of the business model that you're trying to prepare on top of it. So just remember that you are not getting ideas sitting at your home. You have to like basically go out, you need to talk to the people, uh, you need to understand them, you need to observe them. And then you can think that maybe these people can be your real potential customers. So this is exactly like how you can research about your idea and how you can basically start working on it. So this model that I'm showing you right here, which is about idea creation and diffusion, this is exactly the model through which a buyer basically adopts and engages with a new product or technologies over time. Let me just take an example for that. How many of you started like using, let's say, Ola or Uber like once it came out? I hope most of you did not start using it at that time. But once you started your friends doing it, once you started seeing your colleagues doing it, once you started your parents doing it, automatically that instilled a sense of belonging that maybe you should also be installing this application and maybe you should also be using it. If I like remember my own case, it was back in 2019 or 2020. I was living with my friend, and at that time I used to go to some sort of shop to basically have my lunch or dinner. And then one day, one of my friends said that maybe install Zomato on your phone and maybe like you can order your food easily using that. And I did that and it was no going back through this. But Zomato has existed for a very long time. So why did I not install it back then? It simply meant because I was not one of the early adopters or I was not even the early majority. I was a late majority who basically adopted the application simply because I thought that maybe, yes, I can do it right now. And maybe I can like get some sort of a benefit out of it. So this is exactly that you need to understand. Companies, whenever they're launching a new product, whenever they are launching a new service, or whenever they're adapting to an existing service or an existing product, they always want to be adopted by 5 different customers or categories. And this is how you can engage as a business with these type of people. So the first one are obviously the innovators. So who are the innovators? They're basically the small group of people exploring new ideas and technologies. Like if I show you one of the product that I built just this week, this is a blockchain application. I'm not sure like how many of you know about this, but you can just check it out on melange.app. And for people who are really interested in blockchain and Web3, this is one of the building blocks of your next generation blockchain application. And as you can see, like this application is being used by one of the companies called as the Block Native. And yesterday itself, it was featured in a hackathon. So a really small group of people use this product, and right now they are building their applications on top of it. So these people are like kind of the early adopters or basically the innovators of your entire product. So these innovators are basically responsible for like checking out new ideas, and they can like maybe write some blogs for you. They can maybe create some content for you. They can maybe help you get more engagement with the next group of people who want to adopt your product. And the next group is basically the early adopters. Like these are the people who you can think of as like opinion leaders. They can like maybe give you some sort of a feedback. They can maybe give you some sort of positive testimonial so that you exactly know about the product that you're offering. And they can also offer you some sort of improvements so that you can make your product much more efficient. So these early adopters can basically help you get to the ad. You can like basically start advertising your product. You can start pitching your product to a large majority. And this is where you arrive at the early majority part of your adoption. So the early majority are those people who might be following the early adopters. They might have like gone through their blogs, they might have gone through their YouTube videos, and now they know exactly about the product that they're offering. Just think of it as like buying a new laptop. You simply do not buy a new laptop because you want to. You see that there is a requirement, and you see that your favorite YouTuber or your favorite technology influencer is using it. So you go to their YouTube channel, maybe their blog, you read about their reviews, you read about their feedback, and then you make a calculated decision whether you want to buy it or not. So this is exactly how you fall into the category of an early majority. And finally, we have the late majority. And these are the people who are normally skeptic about like any change. They don't want to really adopt any new application. They don't really want to go forward with it. But there is also a strong feeling of being left behind. I'm like one of the perfect example of late majority. So when voice-based social media applications started, like Clubhouse, I was not one of them to adopt it. But right now, I feel that maybe I have been left out, and I should like get started with my game on voice-based social media applications. And finally, we have got the laggards, and as the name suggests, these people will adopt the products very, very late, especially when there are no alternatives. And they might be just coming on board because they think that they have done enough research, they have now enough statistics, or they might be pressurized by the others to basically adopt it. For those old age people who are like using WhatsApp right now, this is the really perfect term, because now they can use one single application to send messages, stickers, photographs, videos, and they can also video chat with their beloved ones. So if you're launching a new tech product, like let's say a software product or let's say a marketing product, you need to use this model to basically identify on what sort of marketing material do you need to prepare for each kind of group. Because if you are focusing that your entire audience is just one single group, you're making a very, very big mistake. So focus on the innovators first, make sure that they are giving you a positive feedback. And based on the innovators' feedback, people will be adopting your product. These are like the early adopters. Aggressively look for feedback so that you can improve your product. You need to get your testimonials, you need to get their reviews. And this will lead to the people who will be like basically adopting your product right now. So they will be the early majority, the late majority, and maybe after a few years, you will see that a lot of the laggards are also coming to your application and basically making use of it. So this is exactly how you can capture the market share as a whole with your entire idea. So Kamal, do you have any reviews on it or any feedback on it?
Any new product, when it's at its birth, it takes a time to people to get to know it, to understand it, like how it is used, why it is used. But once they see the actual users, they're definitely gonna try to adapt to the new one if it is better than the existing one. Only if it is better
Exactly.
than the existing one, they will change. If not, they'll just keep on using the old ones.
Yeah. So how do you exactly like find an idea? So like as far as we have gone till now, you can think that okay, you right now need an idea domain. You need to find a domain that you want to work on. You need to diffuse your idea to basically satisfy different target audiences. But it would also be a good time for you to start thinking on your idea. So the best way to find your exact idea is to start working on your own edge. So maybe try to create a solution for something that you really find annoying or painful. Let me just take a very good example of that. I was working in a company that basically deals with cloud billing. I'm not sure how many of you know about cloud platforms, but there are cloud platforms by Google, by Amazon, by Microsoft. And maintaining these cloud applications is very, very costly. Like if I talk about HackerRank itself, HackerRank spends up to almost a lakh rupees every day to basically maintain its entire application on cloud. So of course, a lot of companies basically want to have some sort of a platform through which they can analyze their cloud cost. They want to see like how much they're spending on the cloud and which are the things that can be possibly optimized. So one of the companies that I was working at, its engineer was like the founder of this company was working at a company called as Gozek. Gozek is like one of the big multinational companies based in Indonesia. And he was working at Gozek. He discovered that, okay, this thing is like really problematic. He wants to build out something that can basically analyze the cloud cost, that can help them identify on what things are exactly costing him a lot of money. So he started thinking on it. He came up with an idea. He came up with an edge. And then he started developing that application with his friend who happened to be working at Zoho. And right now they have created a company called as Economize. And Economize is like one of the startups that is based in India, which is funded by the Titan Capital. I'm also like working at Economize itself. So this is the best example that exactly came to my mind. So the best way to find an idea is to basically find something that is really annoying or that is really painful for you. And once you have that idea, try to create a better solution for that. Try to make it more efficient. Try to make it like lesser expensive. Try to make it more enjoyable. And this is how you can like basically go forward with making your startup a sustainable business. Second, try to find a niche audience for yourself. So a lot of the people, a lot of the startup founders make sure that they have a really great audience in front of themselves. They should be someone who can like basically adopt your product through your word of mouth. So you can easily build an audience like on variety of social platforms. You can go to LinkedIn, you can go to Twitter, you can go to Reddit, and you can start building a complete audience for your product. You can take some real feedback from them, you can get some real ideas from them, you can see like how you can further improve your product. Third, you can also discover like ideas in your job. This is exactly what I always do. So if you're working somewhere, maybe as an intern, maybe as a full-time employee, maybe as a contractor, you can like try checking in, try talking with some of the various components of that company. So every company has like got multiple teams. There might be a team for finance, there might be a team for marketing, there might be a team for management, human resources, sales, engineering, and more of that. Try to understand the processes that could be made more efficient. How could they be improved with the use of technology? This is exactly how HackerRank came out to be. Like the founders of HackerRank, basically we are going through their placements, and they discovered that a lot of companies wasted a lot of time in the placement like journey. They had like a lot of papers, they had a lot of manuals, and they were going to take interviews on papers itself so that they don't have to waste a lot of time. But it was expensive, it was cumbersome, and the interviewers did not really have a good time interviewing candidates. So they came out with HackerRank, which is like a human resources hiring company. And this is how HackerRank simply became like one of the best startups across India. So this is how like you can simply analyze the internal processes of the company that you're working at, and you can check out on how you can perhaps improve the potential of the current offering in front of you. So pick up a product, pick up a service, and try to think on how you can make it much better and how you can make it much cheaper. And also always look for like improvement potential. Like if this particular product is being delivered to multiple folks, or multiple people are like looking to just use your product, how could the entire process be made more efficient? So if you're combining all of these factors together, if you're combining your the pain points, your passion in the sense like what sort of jobs that you did before, or what are the exact things that you want to do in your current job. So if you love working with people, maybe in a customer service job, or maybe if you love working in an engineering role, or maybe if you love working, let's say, in a human resources role, you can maybe combine those aspects of your passion, and you can basically list them out. You can build your strengths on top of it. You can become an idea machine, and you can start like creating some sort of ideas that you can possibly execute to make a sustainable business. So this is exactly like how you can certainly find your niche. You can certainly find your impact and your effort in a certain way through which you can exactly go forward with the whole thing. Do remember that it is not very, very necessary that if you are picking up an idea that you like, it will actually become a sustainable business. Chances are very high that it will just simply fail. It has happened a lot in the past. People started like cloning some startup ideas simply because they wanted to do it themselves. They started picking up like last year itself, the edtech startups were basically in a boom. Every company was building their own education technology platform, and this led to almost hundreds of platforms that are doing the exact same thing. Hundreds of platforms are there which is offering you internships, which is offering you job. But if you try to analyze and see like how many of them are actually doing the things that they claim, you will see that the number is very, very less. So always look for the ideas that is present around you. Just remember that you don't have to like think of something very, very innovative like Tesla or SpaceX. You just need to identify your current job, maybe your current aspect of the things, or maybe the current things that you're doing. You need to find the pain points. You need to combine your passion into them, and you can simply come up with a really great idea. Kamal, anything that you would like to convey on this?
No, nothing at the moment. If the participants have any questions, they can feel free to raise up their doubts in the chat
Yeah.
box. Like their
Yeah.
feedback on this, like what they have understood. If they have any queries,
Mhm.
they can drop them. And I know like there are lots of them were in the waiting room, but I guess Zoom meeting, I mean Google Meet limit is 100, so yeah,
Mhm.
it was quite unexpected from our end. So that's
Yeah.
good. Like yeah.
Cool. So do we have any questions up till now, or do you wish to ask something? Like anyone can just put it on the Google Meet chat, or maybe they can directly speak up right now. So I guess there are no questions as of now. So yeah, let's cover the last slide for this particular agenda, which is about what's in there for you. So basically, if you're like creating your startup, you need to identify whom you're exactly competing against. Chances are very high that if you're building a startup on an already existing idea, maybe you want to improve something, maybe you want to make something more sustainable or something more profitable, you need to understand like whom exactly you're competing against. And if there is certain startup competition, you should not just like feel let down. You should make sure that whatever you're building right now, it should be something that is exactly like going to be improved, and that will exactly like be much more efficient for the customers who are going to use your product. Second, you always need to try to exploit the existing demand. Chances are very very high that your existing competitor is not able to meet the existing demand that is present in the market. So you need to identify that there is a demand, there is your product, and this is how your product is exactly going to basically satisfy your demands in the long run. Or you can also create a new demand itself. You can see that okay, this is what like people are exactly looking for, and this is exactly what the product is getting to be offered. And lastly, you need to like make or break the value cost trade-off. You need to understand that what sort of value is your product bringing and what is the associated cost with the same, so that you can exactly make the necessary trade-offs that is necessary for you to sustain in the market for the long run. So I guess this exactly brings us to the end of this agenda. And next we are going to understand IPR, which is like intellectual property rights. This is like one of the most important aspects of startups. But I guess like I can take up a few questions now. So someone just asked like, what is a stock market? Kamal, what are you going to say about it?
Well, it's just something that companies offer you to keep you in the company so that you can kind of generates revenue for you, something like that. Is what I
Yeah.
understand from it.
So in my definition, like every time a startup is created, after some time they will go for an IPO. IPO, as the name suggests, it stands for like initial public offering, and this is where people can exactly buy the shares of that company. So these shares are basically the stocks, and these stocks basically represent some sort of an ownership. So you can exactly see that I have this much amount of ownership in this particular company, and I'm going to buy the share for that. So every time this happens, you're just pouring your money inside that company, and whatever loss or whatever profit that company is making, you need to share that as well. So there are a lot of stock exchanges around the world. Like if I talk about India itself, we have got the Bombay Stock Exchange, we have got the Madras Stock Exchange. You can like invest your money into that, into some particular companies that you think are going to make a really good profit, and you basically get the shares for them, you invest in them, and after some time you make some sort of a profit and you can really earn cash on that. So previously, this whole stock market was a real mess, but right now we have like applications like Zerodha, we have applications like Grow, Upstocks, through which you can easily like invest in stock market at your fingertips. I hope that answers your question. So do we have any more questions now? If none, then maybe we can get started with the second part.
Yeah, we don't have any questions.
Sure. So, yep. So let us start with our second part, which is about the intellectual property. So I hope like most of you are already familiar with what IP is, but for those who are not familiar with this, it is one of the most valuable assets of a startup. And every startup that is going ahead with an idea, they basically need to make sure that they have the IP rights over it. So these IPs can be like taken off as a trademark, they can be taken off as a patent, and it basically allows the startup to prevent the competitors from using their technology, which is a very powerful feature that can grant some unique advantages. So let us say that you developed an algorithm, and this algorithm tends to do something which is very, very efficient, which is very, very fast. How exactly are you gonna make sure that your competitors are not copying it? So this is where the concept of the IP basically comes ahead. It basically grants you some sort of an exclusive right so that no one else can basically copy your idea. And if someone is copying it, you can basically sue them out. You can like take them to the court and you can say that they copied my idea and I want like legal formalities to be done so that the claim can be settled on top of this. So from a business perspective, these patents can basically drive investments, because if someone is really interested in your idea, they're really interested in your algorithm or whatever they are building, they can basically give you some sort of a money so that they can easily encash on top of it. But some of the startups also have a hard time on determining of when and what to patent. because some of them are like just beating the old horse out. So they are gonna like copy the same idea from some another startup with some tweaks. And it is always very difficult to like identify a particular patent or some intellectual property rights that is present over some technology. But you should also understand that you need to balance the need to protect your IP with some other areas of the business, because patents are always like complex stuff, and it always requires a specific investment of time and resources, and also a lot of legal counsel. Now, most of these products and services are like protected by a combination of IP rights. Now, if I talk about software products, they are protected by patents, they are protected by copyrights, they are protected by trademarks, trade secrets, and all of that. Like if I talk about one of the most popular companies right now, which is Apple, Apple protects certain features of its iPhone and the other products with specific patents. And then it uses the copyright to basically protect the actual code of its Mac OS and the iOS operating system. It also uses a trademark law so that it can protect the Apple name and the logo trademarks so that the people can easily identify their products. And finally, they use a trade secret law to basically protect the design and the component of its upcoming devices. Now, the importance of these IP rights is quite high. It cannot be like overemphasized. And if a startup is simply like unlikely to survive unless its IP is securely under its control. Because if someone is copying your idea without giving you the legal access to it, it will simply mean that the people will flock to that other idea and they might simply like bring your product down. If I talk about like one of the most famous examples of this, then I would talk about Elasticsearch. I'm not sure like how many of you are familiar with this Elasticsearch technology, but it basically provides an open source search engine. So you can go to Elasticsearch, elastic.co, and you can simply check this out. So Elastic is like a fully fledged startup right now, and some of its core product is being used by Netflix, Uber, Slack, Twilio, Microsoft, and more of them. So Elastic built it completely in open source, which simply means that its entire source code is public. It is accessible. You can just go and like copy that entire code, and they won't do anything. And this is exactly what caused the demise of Elasticsearch. So there is another company called as the Amazon Web Services. So Amazon Web Services is like a cloud service provider that is developed by Amazon. And Amazon basically decided that they want to copy Elasticsearch. So what did they do? They basically copied the entire product and they developed something called as the Amazon Open Search Service. So this is an entire like enterprise offering on top of it. They're giving much better support. They're also giving much better engineering aspects because they have like more manpower. And this basically drove the Elasticsearch to like restrict your source code access. And now you need to get a license. You need to like follow its pricing model if you exactly want to use this product. So as you can see, like Elasticsearch is no longer free right now. You need to pay something as low as $16 per month if you want to use Elastic. So this is exactly why it is very, very necessary for startups to basically protect its IP rights so that it is recognized in the whole financial life cycle of a company. And it basically brings the credibility of the startup and it can bring further investments on top of it. So why exactly do you need to safeguard the IP? I guess I gave you the perfect example, but let me just take another example that is much easier to understand. Let us assume that you share your startup idea with a colleague, maybe during a friendly chat, maybe on a coffee break, or maybe during a class. Your colleague now finds your idea really excellent and they start working on it secretly so that they can bring it to life faster than you. Now, as a matter of fact, you have been just got screwed and you have been robbed. So, what do you think? Like, is there any way you can protect your idea in this situation? Unfortunately, there is no such way through which you can like protect your idea. There is always a popular notion, there is always a popular belief that ideas don't belong to anyone. They always like circulate in the air, and people from different parts of the world can come up with the same idea simultaneously. So the first to implement it will be the lucky one. Hence, protecting an idea is always quite tricky. So the general rule of thumb is that to start thinking about in the advance. So if you think you have some ideas and ideas do circulate in the air and friends might turn into fierce competitors, make sure that whenever you're trying to reveal your idea in front of someone, you go to the lawyers so that they can carefully explain the laws to you, the regulations, and you need to be aware of all the legal means through which you can basically protect your intellectual property before they launch. So if some part of your code is like protected by copyright, it will never hurt after all. And if any disputes are arising, you can simply speak about them for your own benefit. Copyright applies automatically to everything you do. So if you're like creating a small mail, if you're creating a cloud repository, if you're storing your data somewhere, you just need to have your name on top of it so that you can prove your authorship on it. So in today's like highly competitive environment, even giants like Apple or Microsoft or Google, like they have a lot of trouble in trying to prove their authorship. Like they can make use of non-disclosure agreements, something like NDA, so that they can say like we have like these NDA between business partners, between employees, contractors, vendors, service providers, so that you can only give them the access if they sign that sensitive document, so that they can basically have a hold of your sensitive data, and you will always have something to fall back on. So the primary reason why like most of the startups actually fail is that it doesn't fit in the market, or there is no market at all right now. The other issues are like simply the lack of capital, not the right team, problems with the like the price setting, poor marketing, etc., etc. Some of the other startup founders have also said that a major reason is like undervaluing their whole market research. So as you can see, like we have like got a whole IP flow here. And this IP flow basically identifies three parts, which is your branding, your product, your secret. So you need to understand that if your branding is actually helping the people identify your product or a service, or if they're basically like finding your product through someone else, you need to identify that. And then you need to protect them through the trademark law. If people are discovering you through your product, they need to understand if it is doing something functional, or if it is someone like your employee who invented it. So if that is the case, you need to protect it by the patent law. If it is a bit creative, like let's say you created something that is visually appealing, maybe an animation or something like that, then maybe you need to protect it using the copyright law. But finally, we have something that has some significant economic value, and it would be difficult for someone else to figure out. You need to make sure that it is protected by the trade secret law. So these are the specific laws that basically make sure that your startup is accountable only to you, and you don't have to like basically delve the whole idea to someone else so that they can basically capitalize on it. And this is exactly how you can protect your startup, and this is exactly how you can protect your idea on top of everything. So this brings us to the end of the second agenda, and we just have like two more agendas left before we jump into the final one. So Kamal, anything that you'd like to convey?
Well, I do have a question over here.
Sure.
That what will you call a perfect team, or what kind of talented people should we have in a startup?
So in that case, like a timetable.
Probably.
Can you repeat your question once? I didn't get.
I'll post it in chat box.
Sure, sure. So what will you call a perfect team, or what kind of talented people we should have in our startup? This is one of the most trickiest question, because every startup founder has one specific problem, and that is the hiring problems. So every startup founder is always looking for like the best engineers, the best designers, the best marketers out there in the world. And some of them like have some serious budget constraints, while some of them are simply looking for the talent that they can simply like hire for any kind of money. This is the reason why most of the startups in India are paying almost as equal as some of the tech giants or the FANG companies are paying right now. But if you're trying to build a perfect team, that this is another subjective thing. But in my opinion, it should be something that basically capitalizes on your strengths and the weakness. You don't always need a rockstar engineer. You don't always need a rockstar designer to join your team. You need to identify what is your current capacity and what is the thing that you'd like to execute. And you need to find someone who can exactly synchronize with the rest of the team so that they can exactly reach up to that level. Now, if you're building a startup, if you're like hiring your team, it might be possible that there might be some attitude issues, there might be some ego issues. People will not be liking to work with each other because of some different ideological aspects. So in that case, you need to just identify whether the person is a right cultural fit or not, whether the person understands your technology, whether they understand your business model, whether they understand your design model, so that they can exactly contribute to it. So you don't exactly need like the rock star folks, or you don't exactly need the best folks out there in the market. You need to find someone who exactly understands the need for your startup right now. So if you're managing to find something like them, I guess that would basically build the perfect team for you.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. So do we have any more question? How could we solve the initial funding or capital amount investment for a startup? Kirti, this is a good question. And this is the reason why there are a lot of startup schools in existence today. Like one of the startup school is Y Combinator. I guess I already showed you that, but I can like do that once more. Uh, so Y Combinator is like a startup school, and it basically offers you 1,25,000 US dollars in the early stage startup. Now, the reason why Y Combinator is so much popular is because getting into it is really hard, and it has invested into some of the world's like most innovative companies. Like I can talk about companies like Stripe, Airbnb, GitLab, Razorpay. Then you have got Webflow, you have got Weebly, you have got Docker. Some of these companies are like literally at $1 billion valuation right now. Miso is another company. Like some of these companies are from India itself, like Miso, Razorpay. There's another company I worked at, which was a Y Combinator startup. Its name was Deep Source. So this is the exact reason why Y Combinator is so much valued right now. And literally, it is like a startup founder's dream to get into Y Combinator. So if you're building a startup right now, the very first advice that you will be getting from folks is to apply to Y Combinator, because if you're getting the funding from there, it will simply make the path a bit easier for you. Apart from this, we have got something called as the Antler, and the best part is that the Antler is actually offering a funding for college students to basically start their own startup. So Antler has like invested in a lot of early stage startups, and right now they are also like building out their Antler fellowship, and this is exactly like where they will be assisting some of the Indian students to basically like start their own thing with some of the funding from their side, and the funding is almost 20 lakh rupees if I am correct about it. So you can go ahead and you can like basically apply for it with a co-founder, or maybe if you don't even have any idea, you can still apply to it, and they will be guiding you through building an idea for your own case. So let us say that maybe you have not been selected into both Y Combinator and Antler. What will you be doing in this case? So in this case, you need to apply to like early stage venture capitalists. Like in India, there are various venture capitalist firms. There is 100x VC, there is Titan Capital, there is Tiger. So you need to just like go over there. You need to pitch your ideas. You need to create a slide deck and basically lay down your entire business model, the product that you're building, the targeted audience, and what sort of business model that you're building that is going to make your business more sustainable. And based on that, they will be like giving you some sort of a seed fund so that you can exactly run your business at least for the time being. So this is exactly like how you can solve the issue of the initial funding or the capital amount investment for a startup. So all that you need to do is like just go over Google and like find all of the early stage venture capitalists that are like quite ready to invest in new startups. So do we have any more questions right now?
I guess we can go ahead. Like we don't have at the moment.
Sure. Sure. So let us go ahead. So yeah, we were talking about the market research. So as I was saying before, like one of the reasons like why most startups fail is because they don't fit into the market, and maybe because they have their like poor marketing, or they might not be building the right team. They might have a lack of capital. They might be having issues with setting the price for their product, and this is the reason why most of the startups founder basically value the market research from the very beginning. So what exactly is market research? So market research, as the name suggests, it is a way so that you can exactly satisfy whether your product is matching the needs for the market or not. So a lot of the people basically make assumptions. They simply state that we already have a market, we have like identified it, but they simply don't have enough data to basically back their claim right now. So this is exactly where you need to like keep your market research always on the top of the game. But the good news is that the market research mistakes can be simply avoided. Like you can do some sort of research to analyze like which products are lucrative and which products do not meet the market requirements. There might be some products which are quite lucrative, but they don't simply meet the market requirements. And this is where you don't exactly need to pursue with that kind of a product. You also need to analyze like what sort of audience is going to use your product, who is your competitor in the market right now, what is the industry that you're trying to build for, and what is the true value for your product. So once you have identified all of these things, you can simply dedicate some efforts into the market research process, because it is not very complex and it will not cost you a lot of money as well. But it will simply make sure that whatever you have on the plate, it is going to be something that is fruitful. I guess someone just asked like how you can approach venture capitalists for your like initial funding. So if you're going for an initial funding, one of the most basic aspect of your entire slide deck would be to present your market research. People would be like really interested to look at what sort of research you have done and what are the statistics and what are the numbers that you can easily bring up. So if you don't have a market research, chances are very, very high that you will simply not be able to make a cut. Now, there might be many reasons why market research will become necessary. Roughly speaking, like business owners do such research because they want to avoid issues and they want to like create possibilities. It is also kind of an investigation so that they can identify the future risk, they can get a fix on the past successes, or they can basically set a strategy for the future revenues. So you need to just ask a few basic questions for yourself if you're doing a market research. You need to answer yourself that whether your product will be in demand considering the competition, whether your product has got some sort of a competition or not, whether your project has some sort of sustainable business model, how much exactly like are you going to spend to earn a single dollar. And these kind of questions basically focus on the unique aspects of your future product. Now, the answer to these questions will depend on person to person, and some of these might have some unoccupied niche, but you can also draw a parallel between another market and yours to see if a similar product could be successful in your intended distribution area. So let us say that you're doing something out in the edtech space. You can just simply equate that with something like the food technology space or maybe with the software technology space. And you can see if your idea will be successful in that or not, so that you can exactly draw a parallel and you can exactly start planning on your market ahead of that. So your entire market research basically comprises of two aspects. The first one is a primary research, and the second one is a secondary research. So if you're doing something like a primary research, this is where you are just going to collect the information that you can do yourself. Like you can conduct interviews, like maybe face-to-face interviews with your potential customers. You can get to do some surveys. Basically, you can build a Google form, you can circulate among people. You can ask for their opinion about what they think and how you can further improve it. You can send out some questionnaires like on online or mail, so that people can simply answer those questions, or they might get an opportunity to ask questions to you on how you can make this product much more innovative. You can reach out to people on LinkedIn or on Twitter or maybe another social media platforms. And all of these things will basically help you analyze the sales volume, the metrics, the customers, and it will also take into account the effectiveness of the current business operations and the competition. The secondary research is like simply all about like the data that is prepared by third parties. So some of these data is being prepared by companies, by government organization, by other entities, by market analyzers. And if you're doing your market research, you need to try to answer the question of what is the nature of the industry in which your startup will exist. So an industry description may be based on such criteria like what is the trend in it, what is the life cycle, what is the growth direction, what is the size of this whole thing. And during the whole process of the market analysis, a solid description of the industry will guide a startup owner. Now, this focus can be shifted to the target market. You can exactly find who your product is, what your service is. You need to understand the nature of your customers. You need to understand where they're coming from. And this will also prevent startup founders from entering an industry which already have like existing businesses to retain their market share. So always be ready to run into barriers to entry. The most typical ones like basically encompass the need for extensive funding, or maybe extensive technical knowledge, maybe extensive costs. And you need to just understand that whatever market you're entering, you need to have access to the raw materials. They might be exclusive or they might be expensive. You might also encounter some restrictive government regulations. All of these basically form a part of the entire market research itself. And finally, we are into the final agenda of today's session, which is about valuation and licensing. So do we have any questions up till now, or we are like good to go with the last agenda?
I guess we can go ahead with the last topic, but before that, I guess I'll share the feedback link, till then they can listen to us and fill it up, because people tend to fill it up very late. So I'm just sharing it now itself.
Sure.
They can just start filling it up while listening to this.
Sure.
So yes, I've shared the feedback link in the chat, so you can all go ahead and fill it up so that you can receive a certificate for attending this event.
Yeah. So the last aspect of the whole agenda is about the whole intellectual property valuation. And this is what will exactly determine if you are exactly valuing your intellectual property on the level of importance. So intellectual property basically refers to the related rights and the commissions that you basically use in industry and in the business. And it can include like your patents, your trademarks, your licenses, your permits, and all of these things. So if you're like creating a startup that has an IP, but it has like no revenue, no business model at all, you can simply value your IP, but it will be like quite complex and difficult. So this is the reason like why most of the value of the starter firms basically puts its intellectual property on the basis of the reproduction cost. So in this case, like you need to understand on what are your funds, how you can secure your finances, how you can access the damage claims if your business suddenly goes down or if it is infringed by someone else. So the whole objective of the IP evaluation is to basically make sure that there is a demonstrated market for your company so that it can incorporate the IP based on the reproduction cost itself. So if you want to like sell, license, or enter into any commercial agreements based on your IP, you need to be able to put a value of your IP asset. So IP valuation is quite beneficial in the enforcement of the IP rights because it allows you to like manage your IP assets and the other financial processes. Like just think like what the revenue might be if the owning firm that has been licensed the IP to another firm and is like right collecting a royalty rate of like let's say 2% on all of the sales that are incorporated into the IP. So if the market is large and the firm that is owning the IP has the capacity to take the advantage of the business opportunity, then the IP will have a value that far exceeds the reproduction cost. So opportunity aside, startup risk for most of the early stage firm is very great. So not a lot of people want to go into some early stage startup. And the IP can basically mitigate this risk to some degree, but the inability of a startup to exploit its own IP will more than likely reduce its value to both the owners and the potential acquirers. So if you want to exactly understand your IP valuation, you need to understand the quantitative analysis and you need to understand the qualitative analysis. So the whole aspect of quantitative analysis is to understand on what determines the monetary value of your technology. Is it something that is very, very new? Is it something that is very, very innovative? Is it something that no one else has been able to emulate or do? You need to understand that part and you need to come up with something for that stuff. Second is why exactly your patent is so much worth it. Like what is the future predictions of this patented technology? I can take a good example for that. Like almost like 7 to 8 years back, there came a technology called as Docker, and Docker simply took the entire software world by storm because Docker simply made the entire like process of building and deploying your software very, very easy. And suddenly like a lot of startups started using Docker and a lot of other technologies started coming up that seemed to replace Docker in the whole, but the whole essence of Docker still exists right now. So if you're creating something like that, you need to understand on why exactly a technology like this is simply worth it. What are the future predictions of it? How exactly are you going to make it much more innovative? How exactly are you going to do something much ahead with the same? This is why technologies like Microsoft's Windows operating system or Google search engine basically went ahead with creating a whole ecosystem around themselves. So you can use like parameters like the cost-based method, the market-based method, like all of these are like bookish terms, but an easy Google search would exactly reveal to you like how you can do it. And you can simply use them to understand on what exactly your intellectual property is faring on the quantitative analysis terms. We also have the qualitative analysis, and this is basically based on the entirely like word of mouth. So a lot of people will have a lot of claims about your IP. They will have a lot of feedback. They will have a lot of testimonials. They will have a lot of citations. And you can simply use this to basically set apart on what would be the rating of the patent that you are bringing forward for the folks. So you can use the legal strength of the patent. You can use the technological strength of the patent. You can also use the bibliographical strength of the patent. And both quantitative and qualitative analysis can basically help you to set the proper licensing for your product. So you can easily like license your product to someone else, and you can always have an informed valuation of the entire business benefit to your company. So licensing basically means that you're giving the rights of your entire product or the technology to someone who can sustain much longer in the market. So rather than spending your time and money on research and development and all of these things, you can straight away go to a company, you can get their IP, and you can start building out the products based on that IP license in the commercial marketplace. Like if I take an example, there is a popular company called as PNG. And when PNG wanted to expand into the sunglasses category, they licensed their CoverGirl brand to a small sunglasses company. And with this well-known brand, the sales took off and the sunglasses quickly rose to number one seller at retail in the first year itself. So growing a startup doesn't exactly mean that you need to spend a lot of time and money trying to launch and sell known or unknown products or services. Today is an IP rich market. There are a lot of products that are still like sitting in some labs or research divisions, and licensing is a lucrative strategy. And you can simply use this IP to bring your startup into a marketplace with some sort of a revenue generating business model. But success in licensing requires taking action and making it part of your daily business activities. So just remember that the best licensing opportunity go to those startups that make licensing a part of the short-term and the long-term business strategy. And this is something that you need to focus on. So the whole summary of today's like getting to know startups was there are like three main aspects of it. You need to understand the idea creation, the idea diffusion. You need to understand how to do the market research. And finally, you need to understand the valuation and the licensing of your own startup. Combining all of these three things can either help you like launch your own startup or can basically give you enough motivation to keep yourself away from this field for at least a few years so that you can exactly identify the pain points, you can exactly explore a lot of ideas before you come into this whole landscape of things. So this brings us to an end of the session. If you want to like connect with me on GitHub or LinkedIn, you can simply go to Harsh Casper. If you want to connect with Kamal, you can simply go to Kamal the Great on GitHub, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And yeah, this brings us to it. So if there are any questions, if there is anything that you want to ask, you can simply do that right now.
Before all that, we just have only 30 responses and we have 100 participants. So make sure to fill up the feedback form again so that you can get your certificate for participation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mr. Harshabardhan?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, this is Dr. Palni, Head of the Department of Management Studies.
Thanks a lot.
And really, you are done a very good presentation. I was so admired, and I'm sitting and listening your points you have covered for the session. And for the participants, it is a very nice session, nice presentation, and it will be the eye-opening session for you. To know that he has covered right from the startup to convert it into product and how to get a patent and intellectual property, how the property has been safeguarded, every topic you have covered. Even analyzing the market, quantitative analysis, qualitative analysis, very nice, very nice. Really good, very good presentation. And I request the participants to make use of it and bring your ideas. Ideas is the base for the startup. Okay, he has explained everything, and so many ideas have been hesitated. Because of hesitation, the ideas have been made it as not coming in with the startup. So don't hesitate, identify the need, and based on the need, see, we are living in a technological era, and what he says is about competitive era, right? So you want to compete the competition by using of technology. Identify the need, the potential need, you make you to convert the product and bring the ideas, and the ideas can be converted into startup. Okay, and very nice to see your presentation, Mr. Harshavardhan and Kamal. On behalf of Institution Innovation Council, I extend my sincere thanks to you, and for the participants also, very nice, and thanks for the participation and make use of this presentation. If any of your doubts, just ask by putting a message or speak this. Any more doubts? I think there may not be doubts. Mr. Kamal Sharma, thank you for your wonderful presentation, both of you.
Thank you, sir. It's our pleasure, sir.
Thank you. And I have to thank the coordinator, Kishore sir, and Mr. Vignesh for arranging this event. Thank you, ma.
Do we have any questions now? Otherwise, we can bring the session to an end. I'm just dropping the LinkedIn IDs of me and Kamal so that you can easily connect with us over there.
You can also go to the link which I shared last, which have all the details of us, like both of us.
Yeah.
That's a complete detail.
Sure. So I guess we don't have any questions, so maybe we can bring the session to an end.
Yes,
Please,
we can.
please, Mr. Harshavardhan.
I'm just
Sure.
waiting
Thank
for the students to fill up the feedback form. So we just
Yes,
have
yes.
40
Some of
responses
them
now.
are filling the feedback, it seems.
Yeah.
We only have 40 responses and we have 100 participants. So at 50 would be good.
I think slowly they may fill the feedback.
Yes, sir. We'll be closing it in 1 hour, so that's why I'm asking them to fill it up. We have 46 responses now, just 4 more at least.
Yeah. And for all of them who are in their first year of college, make sure that you enjoy your time at Sathyabama and learn as much as possible. So
Now we have 47, just 3 more. At least 3 more. Because we had 100 participants, right?
yeah.
Okay, we have 48.
Surrender did not receive the feedback link.
But I'll share it again. We have 49. Oh, which session links? Okay, so I'll share the link again. Feedback. Okay. For those who joined, now you can fill up the feedback form also. And we have exactly 50 responses. Awesome.
Sure. So I guess we can bring this session to an end.
Yes, we can.
So-
Thank you all for joining, and let's hope on we hope to meet on other sessions as well.
Sure. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.